The day after her mother's funeral, Clara found herself standing in the overgrown garden of her childhood home. Everyone else had taken something sensible from the estate: jewelry, furniture, photo albums. Clara, though, inherited a rose tree. It wasn't even beautiful anymore. Once, in her mother's care, it had towered like a crimson fountain, a centerpiece of the yard. Now its gnarled trunk leaned sideways, its leaves spotted with disease, its few remaining blooms brown at the edges. Clara almost told the lawyer to give it to her sister instead. But then she remembered her mother's last words, whispered through labored breaths in the hospital: "Take care of the rose tree, Clara. Promise me." She had promised. And promises were shackles. So she dug it up, potted it, and dragged it back to her small apartment on the third floor of a brick building downtown, where it looked wildly out of place on her narrow balcony. That night, as the city hummed beyond her window, Clara sat staring at it, a lump in her throat she couldn't swallow. Why had her mother given her this, of all things? Secrets in bloom. The rose tree refused to die. Clara barely watered it, too busy with her job and numb grief to care much, but still it lived, leaves unfurling as though it drew life from some hidden well. 2 weeks later, she noticed something strange. At the very tip of a branch, a new bud swelled. It opened quickly, unfurling into a blood-red rose. Clara leaned close, and just as she brushed its petals, a memory she didn't own surged into her mind. She saw her mother, years younger, standing in the kitchen, singing softly as she kneaded bread. The smell of yeast and flour filled Clara's nose, though she was miles from any oven. Her mother turned in the vision, smiled, and whispered, "You were so small then, always watching me from the doorway." Clara gasped and stumbled back. It wasn't a dream. The rose had shown her a memory. From then on, every bud that blossomed carried a piece of the past. A pale pink rose bloomed, and Clara saw her parents' wedding day, her mother in a plain white dress, her father's nervous grin. A golden rose opened, and Clara was 5 again, cradled against her mother's chest as thunder rattled the windows. The rose tree was not just a plant. It was a memory keeper. At first, Clara wept with joy. She had lost her mother, but here she was again, in pieces and petals, a way to hold on to her forever. But then came the darker blooms. One night, she touched a deep maroon rose, and the vision that consumed her wasn't tender. She saw her father shouting, fists clenched, her mother's face pale and tight with fear. Clara's stomach twisted. She had never remembered him like that. In her childhood recollections, he'd been distant but gentle. Had her memory lied? Another rose revealed her mother alone in the hospital, clutching test results, silent tears streaking her cheeks. Clara recognized the word on the page, malignant. Her mother had known long before she told anyone. The tree didn't just show Clara what she wanted to see. It showed the truth. Rising conflict, the forbidden bud. Clara became obsessed. She stopped seeing friends, stopped answering calls. After work, she sat by the rose tree for hours, waiting for new buds, desperate for more of her mother's hidden life. The memories consumed her, reshaping the woman she thought she knew. Her mother hadn't been only the warm, steady presence Clara remembered, she had been complicated, burdened, sometimes afraid, sometimes angry, sometimes unbearably sad. One morning, Clara noticed a strange bud growing at the base of the trunk. Unlike the others, it was black, its petals curled tight like a clenched fist. Just looking at it made her chest tighten. For days she ignored it, but her eyes always drifted back. What memory could be inside? Why had her mother left her this? One evening, unable to resist, Clara reached out. The moment her fingers brushed its petals, the world collapsed. She was 12 again, sitting on the stairs. Her parents fought in the kitchen, her father's voice sharp, her mother's a broken plea. A crash, then silence. Clara crept closer, heart pounding. Through the doorway, she saw her mother crouched on the floor, clutching her arm, a bruise already darkening. Her father stood above her, shaking, face twisted in rage. Clara gasped and tore her hand away from the black rose. The memory dissolved, but its weight remained. Her father had hurt her mother. And her mother had never told. Clara's world tilted. She couldn't breathe. She had loved them both, but now everything was poisoned. Climax, the withering. The rose tree began to change. Its leaves darkened, its roots pushed against the pot, cracking the clay. The blooms came faster, more frantic, each one spilling secrets Clara wasn't ready to see, her mother laughing with another man Clara didn't know, her father drinking late into the night, Clara herself as a child, hiding under the bed while voices thundered through the house. The more Clara learned, the more she withdrew. She stopped going to work. Food rotted in her fridge. She spent her days among the roses, her nights restless and haunted. Finally, one stormy evening, she snapped. "Why did you do this to me?" she screamed at the tree. Rain pelted the balcony, thunder rattled the glass. "Why couldn't you just love me without secrets? Why leave me all this pain?" The tree shuddered in the wind. A final bud swelled at its crown, pale as bone. Clara hesitated, then touched it. This time the memory wasn't her mother's. It was hers. She saw herself at 16, slamming her bedroom door after an argument, shouting, "I hate you." Her mother stood in the hall, face crumpled, tears in her eyes. The vision broke Clara. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing. She had never said sorry. And now she never could. Ending, the choice. When the storm cleared, the rose tree was broken. The wind had split its trunk, its branches hung limp, petals scattered across the balcony like blood and ash. Clara sat in silence, hollow. For hours she stared at the ruined tree, until at last she noticed something. Among the wreckage, a single new shoot pushed up from the soil, fragile but green. Her throat tightened. The rose tree was gone, but something remained, a chance, not to cling to the past, but to grow from it. Clara gathered the scattered petals in her hands. She would not throw them away. She would press them into books, scatter them in the river, plant them in new soil. Her mother's secrets were painful, yes. But they were part of her. And carrying them was not a curse. It was an inheritance. Clara stood, wiped her face, and whispered into the dawn, "I promise. I'll take care of what you left me." And for the first time in months, she stepped inside, opened her window wide, and let the light pour in.